Good morning, Mom. Good morning, classmate. I am Corral, and I'm passed to the first part of our report. So our report is all about qualitative data collection and reporting procedure. The first part, the first two parts of my reports, the researcher's role and reflexivity and data collection sources. So my objective in reporting is that I will introduce and define researcher's role and reflexivity in a qualitative study and show how to execute reflexivity in qualitative research and introduce and define data collection and discuss how and where do we get this data collection sources for a qualitative study. So this researcher's role. So what is the researcher's role in a qualitative study? So the researcher is defined as the key instrument in a qualitative study. So that means if he is the key instrument and he has to interpret the data. As an interpreter of the data gathered, a researcher has to look into a lot of wide ranges of strategies, ethical issues, and personal uh, issues also. And we also define that as a researcher, he has to be qualitative in approach and interpretative. So as a researcher, he has also to do some immersion for observation and interview. When you say immersion, the researcher has to gain entry to the research site and ethical issues. Why ethical issues? Because once a researcher gets into immersion or experience immersion, then he experiences the different cultures of his target client or participants. So the researcher has to be reflexive in his or her role. First, let me define reflexivity. According to Steiner Kyle, the asymmetrical power relations of the research interviewer and of the interviewed subject. So it is the asymmetrical power relations. So when you say reflexivity, it is directed to the threat of the validity of the study and its outcomes. It deals with the social interaction component of the interviewer-interviewee relationship. So it's then on social context. The perspective of the interviewer compared to the perspective of the interviewees. So there are 6 ways on how to deal with reflexivity. First, we have introspection, intersubjective, reflection, mutual collaboration, social critique, and discursive reconstruction. So what is introspection? So introspection is trying, since a researcher's key role is to interpret his data, so in this introspection approach, the researcher has to do self-examination or observe his feelings and thoughts. And it's introspection is also an act of looking within oneself, examining and analyzing yourself before proceeding to do the study. And how do you do introspection? All you need is to ask yourself some questions. Ask yourself questions about yourself. So what do you really wanted to do when you do qualitative research? What are your subjects? Are you ready to write the subject? Why did you choose that subject? Okay, ask yourself about your past. So your past experience, your present experience, your future plans are also composed in your um, as part of your reflections in your qualitative study. The second one is the intersubjective. So when you say intersubjective, it is the psychological relation between people emphasizing the inherent quality of human, something that is shared between two minds. This is intersubjective, as the word inter implies. So it is the interchange of thoughts and feelings, both conscious and unconscious, between two persons, subjects, as facilitated by empathy. It was coined by Edmund Husserl in 1859 to 1932. So sample case of intersubjective so most people would experience intersubjectivity when asked to picture, for example, an apple. The definition of an apple would be the same. Or if you are asked to define love, you would have the same or similar explanation and definition or meaning of the log. That's subjective approach, and it is manifested in the agreements or contract of some circumstances or events that we wanted to do with other people. So we also have the reflection. Reflection is a mental process. We all know this. It's a contemplation. It's a bit thinking. So it's a contemplation or a long consideration. You try to when you analyze, when you try to study, you keep on thinking about it. That is a reflection, and it comes in learning and thinking. You learn, and then you think, and then you try to assess if this is good or bad, or does it help in my study, or is this substantial to put it in my research or something like that. So reflection. The sample case of reflective thinking is the author is Dewey in 1933, and he suggests that reflective thinking is an active, persistent, and careful consideration of a belief or supposed form of knowledge. The thoughts and feelings of a qualitative researcher are products of reflection, and it's called reflections. And fourth one is we have mutual collaboration. Collaborative partnerships are agreements and actions made by consenting organizations to share resources to accomplish a mutual goal. That's mutual collaboration. So usually our education system has a mutual projects with the government to help out our produce, okay, to make our produce productive so that we can also help the community and work be employed in the industry. And then sample cases of this one are sharing of resources, of course, sharing of knowledge and skills, passing on of technology. Number five is social critique. So, social criticism is a form of academic or journalistic criticism focusing on sociological issues in contemporary society. It is written based on what one thinks and feels about an issue, writing commentary on social issues. Like sample cases are the commentaries of Martin Luther King, like he is an advocate on equality, inspired by Gandhi, and he is fond of having some movement on non-violent with a non-violence approach. We also have Jonathan Swift supported the Glorious Revolution, and he is fearful. He supported the Glorious Revolution because he is fearful of the Catholic monarchy coming back again into governance and governing the whole society. So in our case, in our local circumstance, we also have Ferdinand Marcos on social freedom and labor. He has been a very good orator of this kind. And then we have discursive deconstruction. So this discursive deconstruction is an approach to understand the relationship between text and meaning. So when you try to understand the text and meaning, then you come to exhaust the genuine meaning of the of perception or conception. Okay, so it is defined as a way of analyzing literature that assumes the text cannot have a text meaning. So sometimes the meaning of the text or the definition of the text is contextualized. It is best, for example, it is a subject-to-subject approach. And like, for example, when you read a novel in the perspective of a teenager, or you read a novel in the perspective of a young people, or in the perspective of older people or adult ones. Or it could also be like when you read a literature in the perspective, based on the perspective of a teacher, or based on the perspective of a mother, of a Filipino, and cases like this. So there are the significance of the five reflexive processes are to understand the interviewer's role in the interview context and how to use this knowledge. So reflexive process or reflexive approach is very important because it tries to understand the role of the interviewer. It manifests the role and limitations of the thinking and perspective of the interviewer related to this study. And it is also used to enhance the trustworthiness of the product, the transparency of the study, and the accountability of their research. So the reflexivity enables the interviewer to design specific questions for the interviewee that help him inform and clarify the interviewer's understanding of the outcomes of their research. A good example for this one is the reflexive journal in a research or qualitative research study. Like for example, it is inevitable to come up with a qualitative study without reflexive journal because the perspective of the researcher is always there. So there are two important factors to point out about reflexivity. Of course, the author's past experience, the researcher's past experiences are included in the paper. This includes past encounters with research problems, past encounters with research settings, past encounters with research participants. This is so to manifest a relationship between the reader and the study. Why is the researcher doing this study? Why is the researcher trying to design something about this study or manifesting the study and wanted to go further more about the study? How past experience shape interpretation. So apart from the past experience of the researcher also wanted to manifest in a reflexive approach how past experience shapes the interpretation of the study. So there could be, the approach should be thematic, and it manifests evidence that would support the interpretation and that makes the study trustworthy. So the total impact of reflexivity in a research, we have several. Construction of meaning. Okay, researchers need to be aware of their role in the construction of meaning. In the research process, reflexivity takes into account the subjective nature of perception. It's a top-down process. The second one is to promote credibility. So again, we just have discussed the researcher needs to reflect on ways in which bias can enter into the research process, how their background and beliefs, their past experiences influence the way research is conducted. They may need to reveal their own political ideology, for example, in producing their research, their manner of data collection, sample coding, analysis, and the like. And the third one is personal reflexivity. So the researchers' values, beliefs, experiences, interests, and political stance may influence the research, of course. And researchers need to consider how the research process has affected them personally and on a professional level. So there should be the personal and a professional level of reflexivity manifested in research on qualitative research. And then the fourth one is we have the epistemological reflexivity. So when we say qualitative research reports often include information about the researcher, it enables the researcher to gain some sense of the context in which data collected, their training experience, the status, their self-presentation. So in this epistemological reflexivity, a reflexive researcher must be aware of the way in which this will affect the data collected and the analysis and interpretation of the data gathered. And what traits does a good reflexive researcher require? So there should be self-awareness, of course, since you are going to interpret data based on your personal experience, based on your beliefs and values in life, then first there should be self-awareness. Second one, there should be critical reflection. There should be deep reflection. There should be reflecting on different perspectives, reflecting on different content, reflecting, in short, on broader sense. Third one, the ability to think about how your potential biases may have affected the research process and the conclusions drawn. So a researcher should be open-minded. A researcher should not be confined with his beliefs and traditions and values in his own perspective or personal issues, but should also be open to to the to the study, to the broader perspective of the study, for a better conclusions to be drawn out of the research. And the last part of this report, my report, is according to some experts, there should be some proposals of questions that should be included on a qualitative research. So the advanced topics that could be addressed relative to research archival sites, okay, relative or also connected to the gatekeepers issue are the following questions. Why was the site chosen for study? And the second one, what activities will occur at the site during the study? The third one, will the study be disruptive? How will the results be reported? What will the gatekeeper gain from the study? So these are the possible questions that could be included to make a qualitative research more open and more qualitative and more progressive. Okay, the second task that was assigned to me was the data collection sources. So there are four data collection sources. First one is the observation, and it deals with four elements here. When you say observations, it is the complete participant, a complete participant. It could be observer as participant, participant as observer, and complete observer. So when you say complete participant, the researcher's role is concealed. So it's not known to the client or target participant. Second one is observer as participant. In here, the researcher's role is known. So the members or the clients of the researcher know that the role of the researcher in this project is this. So they will be able to act accordingly because they know the role of the researcher. The third one is participant as observer. So observer role is next to participant. So the role of the participants or clients here are as participants and as observer. The next one is complete observer. In this case, the researcher observes without participation. So he is the recorder of everything without his inclusion in the project. In the process or in this source, the observations, the researchers have first hand. It's good. The advantage of this data collection, observation data collection source is that researchers have first experience information which are fresh, and of course it's good for the researcher to have those kind of data, to exhaust those kind of data. But there are also limitations, like a researcher may be intrusive and it may offend the clients or target participants. And there could be private information that needs not to be reported, but are observed. So it could be very difficult for the researcher not to manifest, but he needs not to manifest because it deals with ethical issues also in research. So researchers may not have a good attending and observing skills also. So basically in observation, it's a good process, but how about if the researcher is not good in observing? How about if the researcher is not good in attending to the data of the research? The second one is the interviews. So basically it's the second source, and it's done on a face-to-face. It's done on a telephone or mobile connection. It's done on a focus group interview, and it's done on an email or internet interview. So it could be, this is also good because it's useful, because it's a face-to-face. It could be done on a face-to-face. And sometimes when you do face-to-face and you dig into a lot of questions, and so with telephone conversations and focus group interviews, and so in emailing or sending mails or communications, you dig in the historical foundations of the study that are available to the interviewees. And if this is the case, you exhaust a lot of data that could be very substantial, could be very helpful, and make your research substantial. And at this point in time, you are also in control of your research and the questioning and asking the data. And you can cut the interview if there's a need to cut, if you don't need other data that are given by the interviewees. But there are also limitations because interviewees' perception may be limited, and also since we have discussed that qualitative research should be done in a natural setting, then the natural setting would be limited because you can't stay in the place where you conduct the study. You can't stay in the site. Like for example, in telephoning or emailing, because your interviews are not available, then you can't be in the site. So the setting is not natural. The third one is the documents. So there could be public documents and there could be private documents. When you say public documents, examples of these are minutes of meetings and newspapers. When you say private documents, these are journals, diaries, and your letters. The good thing about this one is the accessibility. Okay, things are accessible when it's historically documented, and these are the historical data. So it is accessible and it's just there. You can even find it in the net. And it's also time and money saving. It's effort saving. Okay, it's an energy saving. You don't go to the place and you can search in the internet. You don't go to many places, but you could just go to the library for the public documents, and you could ask private or experts in some documents. So you can you don't go around the place, or you don't go as far as a research would take you to, because you can just get the data from anywhere, and because of this it is convenient. But there are also some lapses, like materials are hidden and protected, especially the old ones. It's so very difficult to get into antique documents. The gatekeepers might be limited also in showing their data. And scanning, there's a lot of scanning that we have to do because it is already faded. Most of the documents are faded, and sometimes the authenticity is also questioned. Is this original or was it duplicated? Or even sometimes not only duplicated, but there could be mass production about the data. So it's the authenticity is in question. And of course, since it's already faded and it's a very old document, transcribing and translating are needed, and it's also very difficult to do. The fourth one is the audiovisual digital materials. We have the photographs, the videotapes, art objects, computer messages, sounds, and films. So of course, it's very nice because the participants will be able to participate creatively, and they will be able to share their reality, genuine reality to the study, which is good for the study. And but it's also maybe very difficult to interpret what their creative expressions. It's very difficult to also access in public because it's very unique and it's very private. I have here a very simple activity just for some mind boggling activity that for us to exercise our mind. In your At home, maybe you write an essay, 100 to 150 essay narrative, manifesting your feelings, thoughts, and feelings about qualitative research writing. Indicate and discuss your problem about it. Finally, write your possible solutions to this problem. So the technical aspect is there. My scoring rubric is also there. Maraming salamat po. Darwin's work is a testament to the power of two of the most basic tools used in research, the pencil and paper, according to Robert Mark Silverman and Kelly L. Patterson. So again, this is Marilyn Corral. Maraming salamat po.